To the record straight. And now, your host of the Truth Be Told show, Mr. Joe, and Sean.
Hey folks, Mr. Just Ask Joe from the Truth Be Told show. History Untold 400.org. Remember, you never know where you're going until you know where you've been. History Untold 400.org. Check them out. What's up, folks? This is Mr. Just Ask Joe, and I want to tell you about a quaint little spot called D. Nally's. Awesome food, great price, 970 South 3rd Street. Remember, D. Nally's, 970 South 3rd Street. Check them out. Get something good to eat.
Thank you, Truth Be Told, for allowing God's Lives Matter to be a sponsor. Wearable product as the purple t-shirt is bearing witness. Every life created by God has infinite value. This is God's Lives Matter. Welcome back. How you doing, Joe? This is Uncle Me, Sean. What's up, Joe?
Uncle Me, Sean, how you doing there, brother? It's good to hear your voice. It's good to see you here online. Folks, if you ever want to join us online, you can always check out YouTube. All you got to do is type in History Untold 400 Truth Be Told, and you will find us on YouTube. And you can also check us out on Facebook as well at Truth Be Told. Remember, that's always truth with an E, except on YouTube. And you can also check us out at truthbetold.com. Remember that, again, that's truth with an E, betold.com. Back at you, Uncle Me.
And you can make a donation at any time you want to at Truth Be Told with an E, truthbetold with an E.com, and you can make any type of donation that you like to support the cause. And if you don't realize it, we're back. We're back on the airways. I actually said and prophesied that if we're going to be back, we're going to be back because of the listening audience. And what kind of Tuesday is this, Joe?
Oh, man, this is an amazing Tuesday. This is Tuesday, April 4th, 2022, roughly 14 days away from my birthday. And this is the only Tuesday, April 5th, 2022 that you will ever get. It won't happen again, folks. It won't happen again. Another Tuesday, April 5th, 2022. So you better make it an amazing, wonderful day. All right. Back at you, Uncle Bijan.
And guess what else this Tuesday is? It's the birthday of Peter Hayes. Peter Hayes he done got into the 62 club. He done reached 62. Well, happy birthday to you.
Thank you so much. Yes. 62 years ago, Better Days of Peter Hayes was born on April 5th, 1960 in Long Island, New York.
And that's what's up. We got Better Days with Peter Hayes with us on the show once again, folks. He's a crowd favorite, folks. So I'm glad to have him with us.
And we got that segment. I think he's going to go ahead and do the family segment, which is being sponsored by. Who's being sponsored by, Joe?
This family segment, folks, is Focus on the Family. American Federation of, Association, AFA of Kentucky, folks. That's Dr. Frank Simon, or Better Days with Peter Hayes is filling in for that. But he's focused on the family in this first segment, folks.
All right, go take it away, Peter Hayes.
Great. Good morning, listening audience. I hope everyone's having a blessed day on this little rainy morning. First of all, we had a wonderful program at King Solomon Missionary Baptist Church last night. We honored and commemorated the 54-year anniversary of when Dr. King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. And so remember, every April 4th, you should acknowledge the great work that he did, one of our great leaders of the 20th century throughout the world promoting civil rights. And this segment is focused on the family. So we'll give you a little spiritual background. We all know, those of you who have studied the Gospels, the book of Genesis, there's three parts really to God's providence of restoration. There's the creation, the original creation, the fall of man, and then everything we've been doing from the get-go we call restoration. So obviously the plan of God in the garden was for Adam and Eve, first man and woman, to stick with him, be a godly person, as Jesus taught, love the Lord God with all your heart, mind, and soul. And then the second part is to be fruitful, which is family level.
We having some technical issues here. We'll be. You got that? You got that under control?
Yes. Okay. Sorry about that. We're trying to do some live streaming as well. So, as I mentioned, the original plan of God was to be fruitful, multiply, and then have dominion of the earth. So what does that mean to be fruitful? Really, there's a lot of confusion. People combine fruitful and multiply, but as a man, being fruitful is you got to man up. That means you got to man up as an individual, as a provider, as a husband, as a father, then give back to your community. Well, what about the woman? Woman's got to woman up. Eve was supposed to woman up as an individual, as a provider, as a wife, as a mother, and then man up in the community. Woman up, in the community. Well, that's the plan that all of us were supposed to do. And guess what, folks? We still need to do that. If God's original plan was for us to be fruitful, multiply, have dominion of the earth, the question we bring out theologically is, why would that ever change? I don't believe it would. If we say God's unchanging, that plan would never change. Now, we know the story that Adam and Eve, instead of continuing with their walk with the Lord, they got deviated, right? And they got off track, and they didn't listen to God's will, and they fell. And the repercussion of the fall of man is tragic back then because they gave birth to a murderer. So whenever males and females fornicate, which means that they, out of lust, they produce children, that always creates chaos. But when we procreate centered on our Creator in true love, peace, prosperity comes about. So what's the number one big issue in America? You know, people talk about racism or economics or this and that, but really the core is we have a tremendous breakdown of the family. And we look at some of the statistics. In 1960, only 3% of children across the board were born out of wedlock. So that means, you know, basically two-parent families. And actually, amazingly, in the African-American community in the beginning of the 19th century, the African-American community, descendants of American slave community, had a higher percentage of married couples than the European Americans. That's from 1900 to 1920. Now it started, and that's very interesting because so many people say, well, because of slavery, you know, the breakdown of the family, and it was a horrible thing. But guess what? The early ancestors or the descendants of slaves were very committed to marriage and family. And so now we see across the board in America, as of today, 41% of all children born in America are born out of wedlock in mostly fatherless homes. And that's created an incredible crisis. This has been happening since the 40s, the 60s, and now we're 80 years later. And here's some of the statistics. As I mentioned, in 1960, 5% of children were born out of wedlock. Well, now it's up to 41%. And if we break down by the four major ethnicities that the government tracks, see that the cause of poverty comes out of the breakup of the family. Because look at this. Asians, which are the number one ethnic group in America, and what do I mean by that? We mean they make the highest income of the four major ethnic groups, which is Asian, European Americans, African Americans, descendants of slaves, and Hispanics. Well, guess what? Asians have only 17% of children born out of wedlock. European Americans have skyrocketed from 3% in 1960 to 31%. They've had the greatest increase, almost 1,100%. They're at 31%. Hispanics in America are at 55% children born out of wedlock, and the American Descendants of Slaves community is up to 74%. So think about that. 74 of all 100 children are born in fatherless, single-parent homes, and you can't have anything but disaster. Now, the experts worldwide will tell you, if you come to a 40% rate, any society that has children born out of wedlock, divorce, all this immorality we see, you've lost your civilization. So America and Louisville, the question is, we're at 41%. We're past that tipping point, Joe. That's called the tipping point. So will we survive as a nation if we don't turn this family around? So we'd love to hear from the audience about this, the listening audience. You can call us at 502-571-1240. Hey, Joe, and then Mishran, what do y'all think about those statistics on the family?
Oh, man.
Well,
I tell you, as you talk about it, Peter, it just, you know, and we talked about this last week. We even talked about it on the Tipping Point show this past Saturday as well, touting those same statistics. And it feels like a dagger every time we talk about it, because it really does hurt. And it makes you wonder if any of the push that, let's say, a Truth Be Told, or let's say a Uncle Mishorn, or Peter Hayes, or excuse me, Mr. Ed, Dr. Simon, any of the push that any of us are doing towards family matters. It really does make you ask that question. But I guess the resolve is, if we touch at least one person, then we're doing something. We may not be able to reverse that tipping point, but yet again, if we touch at least one person, we're doing something. Over to you, Uncle Mishorn.
Well, I want to add to the conversation, and as if anybody who's been listening to this show, you probably noticed there's a change of things that's going on, and the only reason that we're back on the show is because we thought we were going to be off. But it's obvious is that some listeners wanted us to be on. There's also some listeners that want us off, and there's some listeners that want us on. The ones who want us on actually sold it to us to keep us on and everything. So this show is no longer just Uncle Mishorn's show, or Just Ask Joe show, or Mr. Peter Hayes' Better Days show, but this is a listening audience show that have sold into the show. And I just want to let you know that we're here because God's Matter got sold into by a listener that said they wanted us to stay on the air. And so what they wanted, they required that we will specifically talk about specific things. And what we did is get out of the way, let Better Days of Peter Hayes say the specific statistics that needed to be said, and let you think about it. How you like it. You know, it hurts, doesn't it? So I've already said it. Okay, it hurts. It's painful. It isn't it? But everything I've ever known, Peter Hayes, is that to take your medicine to become good, you got to take your medicine. But you got to know how to take that medicine, and so you can get better. And so I thank you for the medicine.
And to wrap up this segment, sponsored by American Family Association of Kentucky. So last night there was a bunch of candidates, 18 candidates that spoke at King Solomon. Only one brought up the family as the core issue.
Right.
So think about this. The most important issue, all poverty, violence, crime, and everything comes out of the breakup of the family, and it's the foundation that the Lord wanted to create it on the earth. But so many of our leaders, even our pastors, don't talk about it. How many pastors talk about fornication these days? It's kind of acceptable. Fornication, adultery and fornication is just the culture now, and so that's why we're telling the churches churches need to man up, become a man up church. And if your pastor and your deacons are not talking about the God-centered family and promoting heavenly culture, then you got a real problem.
An abstinence. Okay. And that takes us to our break. We go to some commercials, and we'll be right back. Truth Be Told.
Hey folks, Mr. Just Ask Joe from the Truth Be Told show. It's History Untold 400 historyuntold.org. Remember, you never know where you're going until you know where you've been. Historyuntold400.org. Check them out. What's up, folks? This is Mr. Just Ask Joe, and I want to tell you about a quaint little spot called D Nally's. Awesome food, great price, 970 South 3rd Street. Remember, D Nally's, 970 South 3rd Street. Check them out. Get something good to eat.
Thank you, Truth Be Told, for allowing God Lives Matter to be a sponsor. Wearable product as the purple t-shirt is bearing witness. Every life created by God has infinite value. This is God Lives Matter.
Well, welcome back. This is Better Days with Peter Hayes. I'm with Uncle Mishorn and Just Ask Joe, and we're excited our Truth Be Told show. So next segment, we're going to be talking about Unlearn to Relearn. History Untold 400, one of our main sponsors and project, has a term, unlearn to relearn. We need to unlearn things we've heard about and relearn. And so we're going to have Joe, Just Ask Joe, lead us in this segment of Unlearn to Relearn.
All right. Also want to encourage everyone, make sure you, if you want to call in, 502-571-1240. In this segment, folks, we want to talk about the letter to the churches, in Roman 12:15, as well as the role of the church in 2022. So let's go ahead and play this Unlearn to Relearn segment here.
The Truth Be Told's open letter to the church. Romans 12:15 says, "Rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that weep." Over the past 50 years or so, we have certainly been able to rejoice with those that rejoice. We have seen many firsts for our community. However, during that same time of rejoicing, we have forgotten to weep with those that weep. Although the American descendants of slaves community has made some great strides, the community is still weeping, and it appears the church has stopped weeping with them. While this problem is not and does not rest solely at the feet of the church appears to have forgotten about weeping with those that weep. The West End, where a predominant number of American descendants of slaves live, has more churches per capita than the rest of the county. The question is why, and what does it mean to the community? The answer is not that simple. On the other hand, maybe it is. The Abolitionist movement, the Civil Rights movement, and any other accomplishments made were either centered in or passed through the church. That does not appear to be the case today. Crack cocaine moved through the community, and America responded to the problem with increased police presence and more jail time. The church response was minimal. We asked for the police to come and control the problem instead of asking what is at the root of the problem. The church did not weep with those that were weeping. The violence in the community continues to rise to all-time high levels. The question is, what is at the center of all this violence, and what can the church do to lower or stop the violence? When a person is willing to take another person's life for an act of disrespect or perceived act of disrespect, brothers and sisters, if that is not a community weeping, I do not know what is. We have passed the time for the church to respond, but it's not too late. To that end, it is time for all the churches in the community to come together and weep with those that are weeping.
Wow. Hey, Joe, what a beautiful segment there. And we have played it multiple times before. We have played it multiple times before. And I want to thank the History Untold, and the narrator is the president of NAACP, Marcus Ray,
Kentucky,
for narrating that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And where you want to take that, Joe? I'm going to let you start us off and let you go, because you're the youngest of all of us here. All me, Peter, we all been married 25 plus years. I've been in the church, out the church and everything, and I know a little bit. But you being the youngest, getting ready to get married, you got a lot of things, and got kids trying to bring you to family. I want to hear from you first, Joe.
Well, I mean, when you really look at this, man, things have changed over the years, obviously. The church is no longer the center of that conversation. It was it was always, let's go to church, let's go to church. You know, I'm a preacher's kid. My dad was an ordained by God first evangelist. And with that being said, you know, I've attended many churches, seen many different practices in church, and listened to my father preach many sermons. And as a gospel saxophonist and just saxophonist in general, he's played at many churches across the world. You know, it's interesting because even with him growing up, there was a point in time where he asked the question, are we serving God or are we serving the church?
Watch out now.
Watch out now.
Because we were there like 7 days a week almost. You know, it was always something that we had to attend, something we had to be at Saturday morning, you know, Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday. It was always something. And he asked that question and said, man, where's the real relationship with the Father? The one that Adam had as he was walking through the Garden of Eden, that cool of the night, just simple relationship with this energy force, this God force energy that you could just talk to like it was your best friend standing next to you. Where's that at? And that's what he went to seek, and that's where spirituality truly came through the door. So I think what's missing in a lot of churches these days is real spirituality, not the turn the music up and get your heart pumping and now you feel good, so you feel like you done connected with the spirit, but you go home a heathen. I'm talking about the real spirit connection. That's what we're missing in the church today.
Wow, Joe, I'm glad that we actually let you start out first and everything and speak that truth. You know, I'm just going to keep it real. You know, Dr. Noah Schultz, the reason why the Truth Be Told show is on the air, okay, Dr. Noah Shelton came to Uncle Michon after we heard some people trying to deceive us again, on and on and on again, okay, constantly trying to deceive us. And Dr. Noah Shelton came to me and said, Uncle Michon, will you please try to go on the air because I like your energy and everything, and do the show and do the Truth Be Told. And then the name came out. What I'm really enjoying what Joe just spoke on is the realness of what dying, okay, that spirit, okay. And people actually, I'm gonna just keep it real. I was ready to get off this airway and go and do what we're gonna do and do what we're doing, but I have to tell you, there's people who got the spirit in them, Joe, Peter, that want to keep this show on the line, because this is a spirit show, okay? This is not your regular something, doing what you're doing. We just don't do that. I mean, am I right, Joe? Peter, we don't do that here, okay? We speak the truth. Well, we speak the truth and we say some things. We try to drop it on you to try to make you feel motivated. And it appears that, Better Days with Peter Hayes, it worked. Because I don't want to take light of what Joe said, but what he's speaking of, we spoke the spirit off these airwaves, and we back on the airway because some people wanted us to be on. Speak to that, Joe, because the church is not in the building. The church is in the spirit of people, and when they feel their spirit has been moved to do something, and I'm just saying, okay, I believe we moved the spirit of people to ask us to stay on the line, Joe. You know what I'm saying? Peter, speak to that, please.
Yeah, so as we said, I ask this question when I teach all over the world. I've been blessed to be in Kenya, Africa, Russia, Israel twice, Japan, Korea. Yes, and maybe the listening audience, if you want to answer this question, you can call in at 571-1240. What church, temple, or mosque was in the Garden of Eden? What church, temple, mosque, Buddhist temple was in the Garden of Eden? There was none. So the church, actually religion, the Greek word is relos, to rebind man with God. So the reality is these religious institutions have a purpose in civil society, but God wants to deal with every individual. And let me ask you this: did God call all of Moses' family or one person? He called Moses. He deals with us individually. What about the Messiah, Jesus? Did he call Jesus' family? Were they all the Messiah? No, it was one individual. You know, all throughout history, God works through an individual, and then the individual, we have that relationship, we share and love our neighbor, and that's how you build the kingdom of heaven on earth. And here's the problem with Christianity, and I'll get there. I've taught at Southern Baptist, Presbyterian, all over the world. Christianity teaches that, well, Jesus came to die on the cross, and we're going to be airlifted out of this world, and we don't need to be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion over the earth. Well, that's a satanic lie, because God never changes his plan. His word was for us human beings to be fruitful, multiply, have dominion over the earth. That's our responsibility. That's not God's responsibility. So we need to, one reason that Christianity is not getting the job done is because they're teaching a doctrine of pie in the sky, glory when I die.
So when we're talking about when you heard me say that I have a perimeter around my house, okay, and everybody inside my house and everything is my responsibility. That means my wife, my children, and everything. I'm sending a message out to anybody who's paying attention to that, is that that's my responsibility.
Dominion over that property.
I have dominion over that property, right? Is that what you're saying? So if I have dominion over that property and everything, and I can help develop other people to take dominion over their property and everything, and then we multiply, Joe, then we multiply each and every one of us taking dominion over our property and everything, then Joe, does that not expand the kingdom?
At that point, you know, in today's terms, you buying the block back. You know, each one teach one. If my neighbor follows suit and that other neighbor follows suit, next thing you know, you got a whole block full of people that are all protecting their perimeter, taking care of business. And then next thing you know, you got the next block doing it and the next block doing it. You know, I mean, this is something that can easily be done. But I tell you what, we've reached a tipping point, and it's quite, it makes it more difficult nowadays.
It only makes it more difficult because we're not willing to make the effort. And the reason why I'm going to just go right there is because the next segment is going to be talking about a gentleman who's made the effort to be involved in trying to make a difference with us and everything. And it's part of the reason why we on the air is because of this next segment and everything. So, you know, the game of bid was, I love the game of bid was, you just said something. You said follow suit. Okay, when you follow suit and everything. So if you see someone that done built a perimeter and you see someone that's doing something positive and everything, then you follow suit. Okay, you say you kind of like that and everything. That's where that game of bid was come from, and a lot of us loves playing spades and everything, right? You know what I mean? Follow suit. And so if you see something looking good there, then you follow suit. Joe, you see how do you do?
And if you don't know that Uncle Meshorn likes the game of bid whiz, then you don't know Uncle Meshorn.
That's right.
That's for sure.
Hey, well, look like we get ready to go to the next segment and everything. We're trying to stay online, to stay on time and everything. And we're going to be playing the commercials. We're going to come on back, right?
Yes. We'll be back with our third segment with a special guest.
It's the Truth Be Told show, y'all.
That's Joe from the Truth Be Told show. It's historyuntold400.org. Remember, you never know where you're going until you know where you've been. historyuntold400.org. Check them out. What's up, folks? This is Mr. Just Ask Joe, and I want to tell you about a quaint little spot called D. Nally's. Awesome food, great price, 970 South 3rd Street. Remember, D. Nally's, 970 South 3rd Street. Check them out. Get something good to eat.
Thank you, Truth Be Told, for allowing God's Lives Matter to be a sponsor. Wearable product as the purple t-shirt is bearing witness every life created by God has infinite value. This is God's Lives Matter.
All right. You're up on the Truth Be Told radio show with our three co-hosts, Uncle Mishorn and Just Ask Joe, who are outside wafers, and the cream in the middle is Better Days with Peter Hayes. So we got a heavenly Oreo cookie, and we'll get to that some other time. But our next segment, we have a special guest, and we're going to turn it over to Uncle Mishorn to introduce our special guest for the day.
All right. Well, this gentleman has contributed financially, okay, to this show. This gentleman has contributed verbally to calling us, and I think all of us have had a conversation with this gentleman. This gentleman has actually been involved with this community for quite a long time, and I'm just learning about this gentleman and everything. And I call him Mr. Ed, okay? Mr. Ed, okay? And I'm going to let him say his own name, stack it up all the time and everything. So, Mr. Ed, welcome to the Truth Be Told show. You are the featured guest. Finally got you on. Who are we talking to?
You're talking to Ed Hintze.
All right, Mr.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Because our connection is not very good.
We hear you very well.
I'm glad you can hear me, because I'm having trouble hearing you. You said you had some questions you wanted to ask me.
Yes, sir. I'm gonna go jump right in here because we want to keep spot on. Okay, so let's start. Mr. Ed, where you started? Where you was born? Where did you go?
I was born in West Bend, Wisconsin, and I lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and West Dallas, Wisconsin.
Okay, and tell us a little bit. This segment, we're gonna do this thing in the beginning. Okay, we need to break it off to us a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your beginning.
My beginning was very bad. My childhood was horrible. I was unwanted. I was made to be a little girl when I wasn't a girl. Wow. My mother I was born illegitimate, and her entire family, which is extremely large, I was shunted from the family simply because I was illegally born.
And what religion was this?
Lutheran,
okay. And
Lutheran, but of the old Pennsylvania Dutch Amish type philosophy.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
It's called miserable Dutch. I mean, it's an actual term, miserable Dutch. Extreme perfection. You can do no wrong. We're the only thing on this God's earth that's perfect, and everybody else is nothing.
Wow.
Unless they live like they do. And of course, I married into it to boot, which made it even worse.
Wow. And the reason why, you and I had an off-air, conversation, and we discovered that we have some similarities in our relationship and everything. And I told you that sometimes to be a great leader in the military as well, you got to expose yourself, okay, or become, as they say, people see you and understand who you are because you're willing to expose a little about yourself. I just think you just shared a little bit about yourself that hardly anybody knew anything about. Would you say that contributed to your development, to who you are?
Just ask if Cliff Butler was alive, he'd tell you. Ask James Elliott, he already knows. My dedication of why I represented the black community, why I got involved with Cliff Butler, why I felt sorry for the people. The people were being abused. Our city of Louisville was abusing the people.
When did you come to Louisville?
1966.
And what led you to come to Louisville?
I was sent here by Scott Ballmer of Brown Heating and Scott Heating to take over a very, very bad heating company, which was tied in with the old Holland Furnace Company, which was banned from doing business. And he wanted my ethics to come here and straighten out this heating company.
So in the process of being taken over a heating company, you got involved in things that was going on in the community and things. So how So tell the listening audience, how did that initially? So that means you've been part of this airways trying to be involved. Just walk a little bit. How did you first engage in saying that?
Well, in 19.
Hold up, because you with Mr. Noah's show.
I can hardly hear you. You're cutting in and out.
You were involved with Dr. Noah Shelton, America's Little Black Book. Am I right?
That's correct. But that was only recently.
Okay, but
I got involved with him approximately 2 or 3 years ago. I've been involved with the black community 35, 40 years ago when I met Cliff Butler, and I got involved. I ended up being not party chairman. I'm party chairman now of the American Slaves. But then I was president of the Kentucky Minority Business Association, and I was fighting for the causes of the black community. When I first came to Louisville, the city of Louisville was a very strong Republican city, something like the way the Democrats are today. The city was considered one of the worst in the country, one of the top 3 most vile cities, corrupt. I can't even, now my diabetes is entering into me. It was a red light district from one end to the other. Let's see, 4th Street, when I first came to Louisville, was a wide open from one end to the other, a red light district. The black community was being browbeaten. The police department was terrorizing the black community. And somehow Cliff Butler and I got together on the radio. I did the thinking. He followed my instructions. He told the people what needed to be done. And then Bill Summers of WLOU carried it out. And what really made the situation, and it's very hard to believe, this was a very strong Republican illegal operating city, known all over. I heard about it in Milwaukee. Well, and this is getting a little bit too close to me now.
So I was just going because I could see you going in and out, and you told me to engage you to keep your thoughts running. So when you say that this city in Louisville, Kentucky, okay, was a strong Republican, and you sound like you said it was corrupt.
Yeah.
Oh, vile.
Yeah.
Vile.
I definitely want to comment on that.
I think Joe was jumping. Well, you were jumping that, Joe?
I mean, my first thought is right wing, left wing, wings of the same bird. Because you're talking a Republican tyranny during that time, and now a Democratic tyranny during this time, yet things have remained the same.
Things have remained the same. Ain't that something?
Same
Ain't
bird, baby.
Let me elaborate if I may.
Yes, you may.
All right. Cliff Butler was on the radio. I was upset the way things were going for the black community. The blacks did not know how to vote. The blacks did not know how to protest. I constantly told Cliff to tell Bill Summers, protest, vote, 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 vote. This was a very strong Republican city. Sooner or later, and I can't tell you exactly when, the black churches, the black community heard me. They decided on one election to go Democrat, almost 100%. So the decent people, the whites, the blacks got together, and the city turned Republican, and all that illegal activities on 4th Street was closed. Everywhere else in the city, it was closed. No more red light district. In fact, if you go back in history, that was a street when on Fridays and Saturdays was so thick with people and girls sticking their little bare rear ends out their car door. It was wild. That all stopped when the blacks understood they had the power of the vote. I know I created it. James Elliott will verify what I'm basically saying, and the city turned around.
Wow.
The city turned Democratic.
And that was then.
So the city turned Democrat.
And they actually made this. 4th Street is no longer a street. It's a plaza or whatever you call it. They got rid of the street. They got rid of other streets. On Preston and Floyd, where I was located with Brown Heating, that area also was very corrupt. They turned that into a farmer's market. They got rid of everything that was vile, and I know that I was part of it because Cliff talked about it, and Bill Summers made sure it happened on the radio.
So I want to pause and really make sure I understand it. So everything changed, everything switched. So all of a sudden, what was then all Republican controlled city flipped and became a Democratic ran. So was there new prosperity in the community? What?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give you what the prosperity was. The city tried to destroy me. The state tried to destroy me. The federal government tried to destroy me. The Courier Journal tried to destroy me. The Ku Klux Klan, I had signs on my painted on my door, and the Heating Association tried to destroy me. That's how radical. All these people were taking advantage of the black community and turning this into like Chicago. During the Capone days.
Wow.
This is all true. And of course, after I was satisfied with the way the city was going and Cliff Butler died, I, at that time, left and I retired. And of course, I carried on with Brown Heating, Blanc Heating, Star Roofing, Laser Heating, and I carried on until approximately 4 years ago when Priscilla Bullard asked me to come back.
So, but evidently, even under the control of the Democratic leadership, something happened because the community, it seems like it's right back to where it was before. Maybe not as much as
worse off.
Actually, I mean, what happened from your observation? Okay, and you got 2 segments here. And I don't know. It's time to go to break and everything. Maybe we should come back and come back to you because I want you to tell us what do you think from your perspective happened and where we at now and why you feel so engaged to get it. So just hold up. We're going to come back. We're going to take a break and come back to the Truth Be Told show because Mr. Ed is breaking it off. And maybe this is a little history. This is like a history untold moment and everything that many people don't know much about. Maybe this is the reason they've been trying to keep you quiet and silent and everything, but I don't know. But
they tried to kill me.
Hey, we'll be right back.
Hey, folks, Mr. Just Ask Joe from the Truth Be Told show. HistoryUntold400.org. Remember, you never know where you're going until you know where you're going. HistoryUntold400.org. Check it out. What's up, folks? This is Mr. Just Ask Joe, and I want to tell you about a quaint little spot called D. Nally's. Awesome food, great price, 970 South 3rd Street. Remember, D. Nally's, 970 South 3rd Street. Check them out. Get something good to eat.
Thank you, Truth Be Told, for allowing God Lives Matter to be a sponsor. Wearable product as the purple t-shirt is bearing witness. Every life created by God has infinite value. This is God Lives Matter. Welcome back. And yes, I want to let it be known also, this is a God Lives Matter. Since the anonymous donation came through God's Lives Matter, the person that provided this anonymous lift said that God's Lives Matter has a mission, and they believe that it needs to be known. So You need to get your purple T-shirt, your purple hat, and everything, and visit God'sLivesMatter.com. And God's Lives Matter has a message, and it says that 1% of America, 1% globally, is a change for the sake of others. Oh, man, y'all didn't catch that. Peter Hayes actually helped me write that. The 1% of America, the 1% globally, okay, can be the change for the sake of others. And I think we're listening to someone right now who's talking about trying to be the change, okay, in America. So, Mr. Ed, okay.
Uncle Michon, from the audience online, someone I think wants Mr. Ed to elaborate on what he means when he says that Black people did not know how to vote.
You know what? I'm glad that I heard that, and I too wanted to ask the question. I'm glad that someone else brought that question up. Yes, let's go right there. What do you mean by that? Because I'm seeing
they didn't know how to vote. They didn't know of the power of the vote. At that time, the Black churches, and I sponsored the Black churches. The churches were in my corner. Everything that I asked for through Cliff Butler happened. We had the Black Yellow Pages. We had that was a phone system for all the phone things. The churches were part of that. They had a newspaper that a flyer that we created that told about all the activities that were into the Black community. The reason I was able to walk away is because I was satisfied that the Black churches were together again. I was, as you know, the only colored one of the crowd, and no matter what I said, the people accepted it. I can't hear you.
You're the lone gringo of the crowd.
Well, whatever I am. I am one, as I was called, one miserable, hard-headed Dutchman. Cliff called me that. James Elliott calls me that. And that's what the people remember. They don't remember Ed Hintze. They remember Brown Heating and Air Conditioning, and they remember Star Roofing, and that's all they knew, because I never said a word. Actually, on the radio, I did all the talking when we had the Kentucky Minority Business Association, and I was its president. And we set out an agenda, and it was done. And, the people that
I think if I can jump in here, I think when someone asks you the question, how was it that the Blacks didn't know how to vote? You went right into explaining that you gave them instructions and you gave them guidelines and you showed them, you gave them leadership. Okay, you gave them power to vote.
Well, navigate. That's what it was. He answered the question. He says that that ultimately they didn't understand the power of their vote.
Right, exactly. I wanted to make sure because somebody looking for some clear right. You actually answered it. What you were saying is that we didn't have no structure. We didn't understand the power that we had. We didn't understand that we had to organize, which is kind of similar to what's going on today. Okay, I think even Leonard,
the Black community does not understand today what they are able to do. They should stop being ashamed. They can actually lead this country to the city of Louisville. And if you just go back those 40 or 50 years ago when I was involved and follow those instructions, the Black community could help the conservative whites, and we get back our country again. First, we got to start with Louisville. Louisville is right now a problem.
Hey, there's a comment in response to that from the online community saying Black people knew the power of their vote when we were dominating the Republican Party going back to the 30s.
Woo! Hey, that's right. See, nobody even want to talk about that. Actually, there's some major truth in that. Okay, we understood the vote back in the 30s. Okay, culturally, we was using that vote, but we got infiltrated. I want Peter, because Peter said something in my ear, and I can't let you not just say it in my ear, but you need to tell people what you said in my ear.
Yeah, what I was saying is that I've been involved in politics, both parties. I'm the only person in the history of this is history untold that has run for mayor as both a Democrat and Republican. So I kid and joke, but I do know the two political mafias very well. And what Ed was saying, we had a Republican mafia up into the 60s. Now we got the Democratic mafia. And the voting is good, but guess what? We put our faith in these institutions of the church, government, business, family, school. Instead of our faith in God and ourselves, we can be dominated by those institutions. So, you know, yeah, it's important to vote, get good, godly candidates in there. But if we think the government is going to solve the problems of Louisville, these are spiritual and moral issues we're talking about. You know, people have to get their life together individually and create God-centered families. The government policy is against families. They subsidize illegitimacy. So if a mom has one child out of wedlock to get a certain amount of money, you get another child out of wedlock. Guess what? They increase their food stamps and billing. So it's an incentive to have multiple children out of wedlock. That's breaking up the family. You know, if you're living together and you decide to get married, we should be celebrating that. The government penalizes, take away your health care and your benefits. So the government is actually in federal, state, and local trying to break up the family so they have more government welfare slaves. And that's a big issue we don't want to talk about, but that's the reality.
And that's because they hide it under the guise.
It's far bigger than that. It's far bigger than that. We also had a Lebanese mafia and a Jewish mafia in Louisville.
Well, not just in
the purpose of government is to break up America.
Yeah, it
is controlled now by outside sources far bigger than the Lebanese mafia and the Jewish mafia, and of course in Chicago it's something different.
Absolutely.
We have an operation right now going global that controls our television, our radio, everything, and they are doing things. And one of my biggest issues right now is the transgenderism of trying to make little boys girls, or little girls boys, and it's called transgenderism. And sooner or later, I'm going to be making out a letter that I'm going to send to you, Mershawn, showing you how I feel about that and what needs to be done.
You know, Mr. Ed, I didn't know all what I was going to get from you today because you know you are a wealth of knowledge and everything, and I now understand that you have so much knowledge about certain things. I can understand, Peter. Would you agree that he has a wealth of knowledge? I mean, would you now, Peter, have a better understanding that Mr. Ed really knows what he's talking about?
Oh yeah, Ed.
You would not think that. You know, sometimes Mr. Ed, you come across like, oh boy, let me where you stay. But I have to tell you, I am thankful, and we must have you back again. Your segment is coming to an end here. We don't want to we'll wear everybody out too much, but I can assure you, Mr. Ed, you're going to be back. Okay, we're going to have back.
The man is spot on. The man is spot on.
So, hey, Brother Ed, so yeah, you dropped a lot of truth, and this is the Truth Be Told radio show, and that's what we're about, the history and truth.
That's why I want you on the radio. I don't want you to go away.
So why are you supporting the Truth Be Told radio, and why do you think listeners should?
Because I think they will hear me. Sooner or later, I knew they were going to hear me. Louisville, 40, 50 years ago, heard me. Today, I'm 86 years old, almost blind, extreme diabetic, everything crippled. I'm a very, I'll say, mentally strong individual. And sometimes I can rub the people the wrong way because they may not understand where I'm coming from. I care about the black community. I care about America. We're being destroyed. I want to save Louisville, and Louisville, with the proper leadership from you guys, maybe we can change the state philosophy, which we happened to do 50 years ago, and then maybe the state can pass it on to all the other descendants of the American slaves, and maybe the descendants of American slaves can become the leaders of the country, and they don't have to be ashamed of what they are. They made the South rich. They made the South, and they did it the hard way.
Unwillingly.
And that's why you believe the truth be told, because you believe that we are giving the truth. So tell everybody out there, why should they support us?
Why should they support you? If they want to have America, I would suggest very strongly they support you.
Absolutely.
And they can do that by going to www.truthbetold.com. Make a donation.
Yes, we are.
That's exactly what I'm asking the people to contribute to your program so that you can be on not once a week, but maybe 5 times a week.
Here you go.
Just like we did with Cliff Butler, when we finally got through to get the people to protest properly and to vote properly. We changed from Republican to Democrat. Now we got to go the other way around. Our government is ruining our country, and they're going to ruin our children just like Hitler ruined the children to make them hate Jews. They're making children
hate each other.
The parents don't even recognize their children anymore when they go to school. And when they go to college, these people from Ivy League schools are dominated by globalism, and globalism is going to have the downfall of America.
Wow.
And it's going to be too long from now. Another bad election, and we may be finished.
Mr. Ed, again, I promise you, your segment was probably one of the most powerful segments that I've actually been involved with. And I want to thank you. And we will be back next week. The anonymous donation that we received has contributed to us being back here. And maybe your request and all the other listeners as listening may be supporting us. And, Joe,
I am begging the people to support you.
Well,
if anybody that is in their 70s and 80s remembers me, support your program. I do not want it to go off the air.
Thank you very much, Ed.
Thank you, Ed.
We appreciate you.
Absolutely. Folks, remember, truthbetold.com, apparently, you can go and make a donation and, support us. Anything counts. 50 cents, 20 cents, doesn't matter. Just send it in. Give me 100,000 people sending in 20 cents. That'll work. We'll be on 5 days a week. But hey, man, it's been a fantastic show, guys.
Yes, it has been, and this was a good show. Good show. I matter of fact, I didn't know exactly. I'm trying to exercise the restraints. I put some.
I'm sure some people afterwards will ask, where was Uncle Bichon? But
hey,
Oh, he's here. He's here. Don't worry about that.
I'm serving the community, not serving myself. And when I had people call me and tell me that I needed to be subdued so others can hear more about what it is we're trying to do, I'm obedient. Okay. And with that being said, that's truth be told, and we'll be back next week. Go ahead, Vince.
1240 AM, 101.9 FM, WLLV Louisville, W270CR, New Albany, Louisville. The following program is paid for by Grace Ho Presbyterian Church.
All right, cue the music.
Cue music.
Start the music.
Starting music.
And go.
It's the Truth Be Told show, where we place America first. Honoring those who America has forgotten. Listen in and unlearn to relearn. As we set the record straight. And now, your host of the Truth Be Told show, Mr. Just Ask Joe and Uncle Me.
All right, man. We're wrapping up another episode of Truth Be Told. We'll see y'all next week.